The Shroud of Turin. That's the linen cloth believed to bear Jesus' imprint as he was being prepared for burial.
Something truly astonishing has just been discovered about the Shroud of Turin, and it's leaving people around the world in awe. This ancient burial cloth, believed by many to have wrapped the body of Jesus, holds a molecular image that modern science still can't fully explain. Despite decades of research, this latest discovery is groundbreaking, uncovering new and shocking evidence that has stunned both experts and skeptics alike. Could this recent study finally prove that the Shroud of Turin dates back to the 1st century, directly challenging the carbon dating results that once labeled it a medieval forgery? Before we dive deeper into this incredible finding, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. It helps us spread the word and bring more amazing content like this to you. Thank you. Now let's get started. The Shroud of Turin has always been shrouded in mystery and debate. Many believe it holds the authentic image of Jesus Christ following his crucifixion. Over the years, its authenticity has been questioned time and again, but now it's back in the spotlight. A new scientific study presents compelling evidence that the cloth may indeed originate from the time of Christ. And as if that weren't enough, artificial intelligence has entered the picture too, offering fresh perspectives and insights that could change everything we thought we knew. The Shroud's mysterious origins. Dr. Jeremiah Johnston, author of Body of Proof, recently shared his thoughts on this groundbreaking discovery, calling it the biggest Christian story of the year. His interest in the Shroud of Turin began years ago during his PhD research focused on the resurrection of Jesus. As he explained, earning a doctorate typically involves diving deep into a very specific area, and for him, that meant studying Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection in detail. As he followed the evidence, the Shroud of Turin kept appearing as a key topic he couldn't ignore. Over time, Dr. Johnston noticed that many had dismissed the shroud, often because of its association with Catholic tradition or claims that it was only about 700 years old. But his research painted a very different picture, one that suggested the cloth could very well date back to the time of Jesus. He emphasized that the Shroud of Turin is the most studied archaeological artifact in the world. And remarkably, even some of its toughest critics now agree. It is, in fact, a burial cloth from the era of Jesus of Nazareth. This shifts the conversation from religious belief alone to compelling historical and scientific evidence. Looking back, Dr. Johnston admitted he began his journey as a skeptic. But as his research progressed, he came to see the shroud not just as a fascinating relic, but as a significant and potentially authentic link to the resurrection story. He now firmly believes in its importance and authenticity. Indeed, the burial garment described in all 4 Gospels may truly be the Shroud of Turin. Dr. Johnston confidently referred to the overwhelming evidence supporting this claim as undeniable. It's incredible that such groundbreaking discoveries about the shroud are emerging during times of global uncertainty and chaos. 2 major recent findings have reignited public and scientific interest. The first comes from advanced scientific analysis using a method known as wide-angle X-ray scattering. Researchers from the National Research Council of Crystallography examined the linen fibers of the shroud and determined that they are approximately 2,000 years old, aligning with the time of Christ. This finding directly challenges earlier claims that the shroud was only 700 years old, and it has even led some skeptics to reconsider their stance. The second breakthrough involves the study of bloodstains found on the cloth. Upon closer inspection, researchers discovered a significant presence of blood, which has remarkably retained a bright red color over the centuries. Scientists explain that when someone endures extreme physical trauma, such as what Jesus experienced, certain substances like ferritin, creatinine, and bilirubin are released by the liver in high quantities. These compounds may have helped preserve the blood's red hue instead of allowing it to darken as it normally would over time. Together, these 2 discoveries are reshaping the conversation around the Shroud of Turin. They've sparked renewed debates about its authenticity and inspired many to take a fresh look at its spiritual and historical significance. Thanks to advanced X-ray analysis and blood chemistry studies, the evidence now strongly suggests the shroud is not a medieval creation, but a 2,000-year-old relic that continues to captivate the world. The depiction of death seen on the Shroud of Turin closely mirrors the crucifixion accounts found in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Experts consider the shroud to be the most extensively studied artifact in the world, with every inch carefully analyzed. Its features align strikingly well with what we know about first-century Jerusalem and the world Jesus lived in, from ancient coins and textile patterns to blood chemistry. Scholars often point to this level of detail as a strong sign of authenticity. The reasoning is simple. If the shroud were created 700 years ago, the artist would have had no way of knowing these precise historical facts, many of which weren't even discovered until modern times. That level of historical accuracy makes the shroud all the more remarkable. Many people believe the shroud holds deep spiritual and historical meaning. Dr. Jeremiah Johnston, who grew up in an evangelical Christian household, initially viewed the shroud as simply a Catholic relic. He was intrigued by its religious implications, but didn't believe it was man-made. While he doesn't worship the shroud, he describes it as both miraculous and deeply inspiring. One of the most compelling aspects, according to Dr. Johnston, is the recent AI-generated rendering based on the shroud. He said the image was striking and closely resembled the New Testament's description of Jesus. But what truly convinced him of the shroud's authenticity was the molecular image imprinted on the linen itself. Top scientists have been unable to explain how it formed. This mystery led Dr. Johnston to believe it simply couldn't have been created by human hands. Even scientists from Sandia National Laboratories in New Mexico, who once helped develop the atomic bomb, attempted to explain the image's formation using advanced science, yet even they were left without answers. At one time, some researchers believed the Shroud of Turin could be debunked as a fake in just 20 minutes. But when a team of scientists examined it in 1978, their confidence quickly faded. After studying it closely, they were left speechless and stunned, because not a single one of them could explain how the image had formed on the cloth. The deeper they investigated, the more mysterious it became. One particularly fascinating detail was that the image seemed to vanish when viewed from a distance, a quality that made it seem even less likely to be a forgery. Dr. Jeremiah Johnston, drawing from his expertise in the physical resurrection of Jesus, emphasized that no one in history endured what Jesus did. He pointed out that the method of crucifixion depicted in the shroud was unusually brutal, unlike anything else recorded. Based on updated research and recent discoveries, Dr. Johnston revised his earlier estimate of the number of wounds on the man in the shroud, from 372 to as many as 700. This staggering number suggested the individual had endured over 120 lashings, far beyond what many had assumed. To Dr. Johnston, these wounds served as a powerful symbol of divine love, referencing Romans 5:8. Christ died for us while we were still sinners. He saw the marks as undeniable physical evidence of Christ's sacrifice. He also mentioned how the Passion of the Christ powerfully portrayed the intensity of Jesus' suffering. According to Dr. Johnston, the level of torment Jesus experienced during his crucifixion was unimaginable, almost demonic in its cruelty. He concluded that Jesus chose to die from asphyxiation and organ failure, not because he had to, but because he loved humanity and wanted to save it. Finally, Dr. Johnston shared a fascinating insight tied to the early days of film photography. He recalled the era of one-hour photo labs and how light exposure played a critical role in developing images. Surprisingly, when experts in weaponry, not theology, studied the shroud, they were shocked by how the image responded to light. It suggested something far beyond human fabrication, adding yet another layer of mystery to this ancient cloth. Something extraordinary, perhaps even divine, was discovered in the 1970s. When a VP8 image analyzer, a device designed to process two-dimensional images, was used to examine a photograph of the Shroud of Turin, scientists were stunned. Unlike other images that appeared flat, the shroud's image generated a three-dimensional hologram of a crucified man. Nothing like it had ever been seen before. This surprising 3D property of the shroud sparked widespread interest and ignited a wave of research that continues to this day. Even more incredible is that this discovery happened at a time when technology was still in its early stages, decades before the digital tools we have now. One of the scientists involved, Barry Schwartz, had no religious background or agenda. At the time, he identified as a secular Jew, interested only in the scientific aspect of the shroud. Initially, he saw the project as little more than a free trip to Italy. But as he continued studying the evidence firsthand, his views began to change. By the end of his research, he was no longer a skeptic. He not only accepted the authenticity of the shroud, but he also experienced a personal transformation, eventually converting to Christianity. What moved him most were the details, the manner of death, the wounds, and how accurately they reflected crucifixion practices in first-century Jerusalem. These facts couldn't be ignored or dismissed. This discovery came at a powerful time, especially considering the rising global tensions and unrest surrounding Israel and Jerusalem. It's remarkable that even today, new evidence continues to emerge, revealing layers of meaning in the shroud, while some still choose not to believe. As Dr. Johnston and others have pointed out, faith isn't just a feeling. It's a conviction built on truth and evidence. True faith comes not from blind belief, but from seeing what's right in front of you and being willing to accept where the evidence leads. Faith isn't about blindly believing. It's about seeking truth and finding real evidence to support it. To illustrate this, Dr. Jeremiah pointed to the story of Lazarus in John 11, where Jesus raised a man from the dead. Despite witnessing this miracle, the Pharisees still rejected him. This shows that even the most undeniable proof doesn't always lead to belief unless the heart is open to it. When asked whether faith is still necessary in the face of such overwhelming evidence for Jesus' bodily resurrection, Dr. Jeremiah answered with a firm yes. He explained that the most dangerous spiritual place a person can be is when they stop searching for the truth. Dr. Jeremiah also took time to explore one of the most hotly debated topics surrounding the Shroud of Turin, the 1988 radiocarbon dating test. This test, conducted by 3 independent laboratories, concluded that the linen of the shroud was only about 700 years old, placing its origin somewhere between 1260 and 1390 AD. As soon as this result was made public, it caused a massive wave of skepticism. Many believed this finding proved once and for all that the shroud was a medieval forgery, effectively discrediting centuries of belief and tradition that connected it to the time of Jesus. But Dr. Jeremiah emphasized that this conclusion was far from the end of the story. In fact, more recent and thorough research has raised serious questions about the validity of the 1988 test. He pointed out that the sample used for the carbon dating came from a corner of the cloth that had likely been repaired during the Middle Ages, possibly after it was damaged in a fire. This portion of the fabric may not have been representative of the original material at all. Some textile experts and chemists later confirmed that the weave and chemical makeup of that section were significantly different from the rest of the shroud. Adding to this, new technologies and methods, far more advanced than those available in 1988, have been applied to re-examine the cloth. These include wide-angle X-ray scattering, microscopic imaging, and analysis of wax residues and other organic compounds found in the fibers. The results of these studies suggest that the shroud could date back 2,000 years, aligning it much more closely with the time of Christ. Dr. Jeremiah noted that these more recent findings had essentially invalidated the earlier carbon dating results. For him, and for many others in the scientific and theological communities, this was a pivotal realization. He stated that he no longer relies solely on carbon dating, especially when dealing with sacred or ancient relics. The shroud, he believes, is far too complex and unique to be judged by a single flawed test. In his view, the 1988 results have now been thoroughly debunked by both science and logic. To illustrate the emotional and spiritual weight the shroud carries, Dr. Jeremiah shared a compelling story about C.S. Lewis, the renowned author and Christian thinker best known for the Chronicles of Narnia and Mere Christianity. According to Dr. Jeremiah, Lewis kept a photograph of the Shroud of Turin hanging in his bedroom, a personal and profound reminder of his faith. For Lewis, this image was not just a relic or a curiosity. It was a visual symbol of the divine, a daily affirmation that God became flesh, lived among us, and suffered for the sake of humanity. To Lewis, the shroud made a powerful statement: God has a face, and that face is Jesus Christ. This deeply resonated with Lewis's theology and imagination. The idea that the physical imprint of Christ's suffering and resurrection could still exist in our world offered him comfort, conviction, and awe. It served as a tangible link to the spiritual truth that Jesus is both fully divine and fully human, a reality that continues to transform lives today. As we come to a close, let's take a moment to reflect and pray. Father, like Peter and John, we want to run to the tomb, to see it empty again. When we think about the shroud, we are reminded that you are alive, and that gives us a hope that never fails. As 1 Peter 1:3 says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his great mercy, he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead." Help us to carry this hope and be bold in sharing the good news, that Jesus is truly our living hope. Thank you for giving us truth and light at such an important time. In Jesus' name, amen.